Hello, welcome back to my channel. I am Lorian and this is my final video for Cozy 2021. This video is a part of a collaboration. It is a thrifted Fantasybound outfit. So if you want to watch the larger collaboration video, that is on Bluffuffel's channel. I'll have it linked below. That is a fashion show for all of us who made Fantasybound outfits, just showing off what we made. It's a lot of fun. Go check it out for sure. In this video, I'm showing you how I made my outfit. So this was the thrift challenge. The price point was $35, and I did not buy any pieces of clothing at a thrift store because I am both tall and plus size, and it's really hard to find pieces that fit me at a thrift store. I found that a lot of the pieces that are there in the first place get bought up by smaller makers who want to turn them into adorable smaller outfits, which is fine and fun. I enjoy watching those videos, but it doesn't leave a lot of clothing for me to buy. So what I've done is bought curtains and sheets and things that will basically just be fabric to me from the thrift store. I also have the good fortune of having a craft supply thrift store near me, so I have got some supplies from there. They're more common than you'd think, so I would recommend seeing if you have one local to you. They're really great in lowering the cost to entry for this hobby, which is like kind of a high threshold. So I ended up spending around $10 on this outfit all told. I did have the skirt already in my wardrobe, so I'll be showing you how I made the vest and the blouse today. For this vest, I am using the Black Snail 1890s ladies vest pattern. It's a great pattern. I've made it before and I'll link that video above. I'm making it out of this upholstery fabric, sort of mustardy yellow, sort of chenille upholstery fabric that I found at my local crafting thrift store, and some linen that I also found at my craft thrift store years ago. And I had these buttons in my stash, and I was planning to use them, didn't end up using them. Starting to assemble the vest. This is sewing the back seam, trimming it down so I can fold it over and sew it into a flat felled seam, just on machine, just top stitched. Used a contrasting thread for this so it would match the yellow of the vest front. And then those back darts. They're a curved dart, so I've got them pinned real well. And then the bottom edge was finished off with just a little rolled hem, little quarter inch hem. And these are the straps on the back. Just sewn in the seam allowance, trimmed down, flipped right side out, and then pressed. And then I'm attaching those to the back of the vest. I'm just machine basting them at the side, and then hand basting them out of my way, basically, to the back of the vest. Now I'm finishing off the armholes on the back of the vest. I've just got some store-bought bias tape that I am pinning on the inside. Stitching down. Sorry, I'm pinning on the outside, stitching down, then trimming. And then stitching that bias tape down, folding that all to the inside of the vest, giving that a press, and stitching it once again. Nice and pretty. And here is the front. Getting the darts done on that side dart. And that waistline dart. Then I'm sewing the back of the neck, so this will end up being under the collar. And then I'm getting the front and bottom facing stitched together. And once again that back of the collar for the facings. And then the facings pinned to the body of the vest and stitched all the way around the edges. And then I will be trimming the seam allowance and flipping that out, and that is basically the outside of it. And time for a little cat break. And back at it. This is sewing the shoulder seams, which are done in a way I hadn't done before making this vest. So the back is sewn on the shoulder seams on either side. And where the armhole meets at the shoulder there, I'm wrapping the outside fashion fabric around the back to create a nice edge there. It's basically just helping the fashion fabric fold in nicely to be finished. So I'll just stitch along the seam from this little mark to the edge, like I did on the other side, and then we'll deal with this top bit. So you can see how that just encourages the exterior fabric to fold nicely in there and gives it a nice seamless finish on that edge. Next, I'm going to be clipping down to that mark on the fashion fabric so that I can get the collar and the top back of the back panel of the vest to sit flat while I stitch from the mark at each edge of the shoulder seams to the other, if that makes any sense. And there we go. It's just a nice clean finish on the outside. I like it. I didn't get my seams lined up perfectly, but oh well. Now I'm getting my side seams done. It's a similar thing at this armhole line where you're folding over those seam allowances so they're tucked in already, with the bottom facing as well. And there we go. Practically like magic. And now it is the time to baste along the edge of the entire vest by hand. I've skipped almost every single tailoring step in this vest construction. It has a lot more layers to it, but this fabric is so thick that I don't think it needed it. Even after having made it, I think it's doing fine without any of the tailoring options. And I didn't need it to look like, the fabric's so thick it didn't need to have like a very crisp finish, because it wouldn't have showed up anyway. But this step I did keep because I want to make sure that the edges of the seams are pushed the direction they need to be. So you see that pin in the edge. Below it, my seam is tucked to the inside of the vest, and above it my seam is tucked to the outside, because that is where the curve line for the collar hits. And that is the way, you don't want to have visible edges where the two facing and exterior meet. So if you baste it, it just makes it easier for it to stay where it's supposed to stay as you attach linings and press and all of those good things. And now I'm just basting the fold line of the collar for the same reason that I basted the outside edge, just so it is situated how it needs to as I do the next few steps, like attach the lining, which could pull on it. And I had a little stain on the fabric. I just wanted to make sure that was covered, and it was. It's tucked right up under the collar where it'll never be seen. Now I'm just felling the edge of the facing down. Normally you'd have a canvas layer, at least some interlining, and some tailor canvas in there to attach this to, but this fabric is once again so thick, I just stitched it to itself and it's not visible at all. And then for this part attached to the back fabric, since it will be visible, clipping into the seam allowance and neatly tucking the seam allowances back up and felling those down as neatly as I can because they will remain visible. I'm getting the armholes finished off. They're just getting pinned to the inside, and I'm clipping them along the curve as they need to be clipped. And then those get the same treatment as the facing. They just get felled down real sloppy, however holds them. especially since this was a loose weave, as you can see, frayed pretty easily. Those stitches are pretty big, but it doesn't matter, it'll all be covered by a lining. And it looks great from the outside still, so whatever. Lining time. For this lining, you iron the seam allowance in, lay it down on the inside of the vest, making sure to cover all those ugly little raw seams, and just fill it in by hand. Tried to be a little neater with this, because these stitches will remain visible on the finished vest. And now the buttonholes. In my defense, it was 3 a.m. when I was doing these buttonholes, so they are not done correctly. They are done with the baffling material choice of 6 full strands of embroidery floss, and also, you may notice, I have done 10 buttonholes here. This is a double-breasted garment, but usually you sew a false row of buttons on and only do half the buttonholes. And I was 3 a.m. brain, and I just sewed all 10 buttonholes. So now I get to sew all 10 buttons on. I was initially going to use those shell buttons that I showed at the beginning, and in fact I did sew all 10 of those shell buttons on. The problem was they were so thin that as soon as I started to button the vest, they just snapped in half because this fabric is so thick that it takes a little bit of force to get it buttoned. So I went through and used these sort of faux shell plastic buttons that I also had in my stash instead, and made a nice thick thread shank using a clay sculpting tool as my spacer, and those worked great. This vest is a little bit of a to-do to button onto yourself. I mean, it's not impossible, but it could have been easier. For this shirt, I have hacked a few patterns of mine. This was actually from my aquarium dress. I just rotated the dart out of where I needed this little yoke. So I've got 2 front yoke pieces. And then the lower part of the bodice is gathered So it's just a full fabric width with little armhole cut on the edges. That'll be gathered down to the yoke. And it is the same situation for the back pieces, except for I left those darts. And once again, that back lower panel is just the full width of the fabric, with the armhole shape cut into the edges. I cut out this little collar piece. I don't use it. And some sleeves, which are very big, to be gathered very much down. This is another fabric that I got at my thrift craft shop, by the way. First thing is those darts on the back yoke. They're marked in friction pen, by the way. You can find them at, any office supply store, and they erase with friction, which is just heat, y'all. So when you iron it, the markings come out. And I am using my serger for this, so I've just serged one of the front yoke panels, and now I am serging the back yoke panels together. And I noticed I did my darts backwards, but only on one side, so those can be inside and it's not a problem. And then I'm just serging the bottom edge of both of the lower panels, because I'm going to be wearing this shirt tucked in all the time, so it doesn't need a fancy finish. Now I'm adding gathering stitches to the tops of both of those lower panels and the tops of both of the sleeves. There's my two front yoke pieces. I am just lining them up how I want them to overlap and pinning them so that I can gather the lower portion of the front piece down to the right width and stitch them together. And I've got a little smudge on this fabric as well. I guess that's the danger of thrifting craft supplies sometimes, but that can just go on the inside of the shirt where it won't be visible. And there I'm attaching that front yoke to the lower front part. I have pins in, you might notice. You have to be very careful to remove your pins when serging, or you'll mess up your serger and send bits of pin flying violently around the room. And there's my shoulder seams. Lovely. Basically a shirt. And here I am attaching sleeve on. I attached them while the shirt was still unattached at the side seams. It is easier to do that way on a serger. Lovely sleeve cap. And then I am sewing down the arm and then to the body side seam. Then I'm serging around the edge of the armhole opening, and then I go to my sewing machine and sew that down into an elastic casing. For some reason my camera did not pick that up, but I promise that's what I did. And there is the shirt. This was a really simple project, all told. It took me about 3 hours to hack the pattern up and get it sewn. Sergers really help with that. They're fast. Alright, here it is all tried on together. I think this turned out really cute. I love this vest. I don't wear very many vests in my daily life, but I really like this pattern, and I think I'm gonna have to start adopting the practice. Thanks so much for watching, and thanks for hanging out during Cozy. If you would like to see more of my videos, I release every other week, so I have a video coming out not this following Thursday, but the one after that. It's real great. I'm excited to show you guys. I have some videos linked on the screen if you want to watch more right now.